It's my great pleasure this time to call on Senator the Honourable Fazal Karim, Minister of Science, Technology and Tertiary Education. This is the feature address. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Richard Pierre, who is also a person of much talent. I remember him on the days, I don't think it was as long ago as that, but he joined later on when it was called TTT with Auntie Hazel. We may give him a round of applause too. The Honourable Rudranath Indar Singh, Member of Parliament for Couva South and Minister in the Ministry of Local Government, Mr. Richard Oliver, Acting Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Energy and Energy Affairs, Mr. Curtis Manchun, Chairman of the Board of Governors of UTT, and members of the Board of Governors who are here with us this morning, including Mr. Mutema, Mr. Firoz Khan, the Chairman of the NESC, and members of the Board of Governors of the NESC, Mr. Terry Lehman, Director of Petroskills America, very special welcome to you, sir. Mr. Rodney Jagai, the Acting President of UTT, Dr. Fazal Ali, recently appointed Provost of the University of Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Ian Welch, President of PCS Nitrogen and former member of the board and founding member, if I may say so, of the University of Trinidad and Tobago. Dr. Michael Dowler, Chairman of the Accreditation Council, staff, students of all agencies, special invited guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. Let me first of all apologize for keeping you waiting. I had another engagement in Faizabad with the Member of Parliament for Faizabad. I'll tell you a little bit about that later. I'll make reference to it. But I think I want to start by, as we are rebranding, I want to really congratulate Andre Mangatal. And I want to record my appreciation together with him, with another student I listened to at the Omira campus, Stefan Hernandez. When you listen to Andre Mangatal, you would pay like I paid in Scotland when I visited the Edinburgh Playhouse, and I listened to the voices that came with the play, Phantom of the Opera. It reminded me of that kind of talent. And therefore, as I sat there, I don't want to change the name of UTT, but I just wrote down UTT, Unlimited Transforming Talent. And I think that's what you want to see. Ladies and gentlemen, according to the Framework for Development of the Renewable Energy Policy for Trinidad and Tobago, as published in 2011, it says, Trinidad and Tobago's petroleum resources have been and would continue to be the prime driver for the country's growth and development for some time into the future. On the national level, natural gas is now the primary energy source both for fuel and feedstock, whereas the transportation sector is almost completely dependent on petroleum products. Local energy demand for this finite resource, and we underscore finite resource, is on the increase, making conservation vital. This could reasonably be addressed by utilizing and utilization of renewable energy, RE resources, increasing energy efficiency, decreasing energy demand, and the use of alternative fuels in the transportation sector. I also maintain, and I think we look at the lead of what is happening in other energy-producing countries, and very large ones at that, when we talk about the diversification of Trinidad and Tobago's economy. And ever since I was in university in 1974, we were reading The Political Economy with Governor Jefferson. They were talking about since those days of diversification. We have been hearing this all the time. And when you look about what was happening, when you look at what's happening in the Caribbean, and you read Persistent Poverty by George Beckford, it tells you about the multinational corporations, the MNCs. And I don't think the story has changed. Maybe the nomenclature may have changed, but the stories may not have changed. And I say that in the context that if you look at what is happening in Saudi Arabia, one of the largest producers of oil and gas too in the world, Saudi Arabia is now moving towards the development of the King Abdullah Economic City, which is platformed on life after oil and gas. And we are talking about diversification. When you look at what is happening in a small state like Singapore, which refines 500,000 barrels of oil a day, I don't have one drop of oil under either the seabed or their land resources. And they produce that, of course, because of the strategic location. We want to really underscore the importance of institutes like the Energy Institute, which will not only be a center for learning and teaching, but important the research and commercialization of research. Very often we do research, Research is very good. And we talk about the liberal mind that must explore academia. All those things are very nice. But if we do not commercialize that research, what you will find happening, we'll have hard stocks on the 4th floor or the other 3 floors of the JFK or any other library. And then after a while, you want to digitize the stocks that you have. So it might be worth the while to consider, how do you take this learning, this teaching, this research, and move it in terms of commercialization? That is where the entrepreneurship meets academia. Ladies and gentlemen, the government has expressed a commitment to the development of an energy policy for Trinidad and Tobago through a process of public consultations and discussions, which would incorporate the fullest development of the country's energy resources. It is against this background that I stand today proud to be here at what I can only describe as a truly collaborative enterprise, as 2 agencies under the umbrella of my ministry, the UTT and the NESE, signed a memorandum of understanding to establish the Energy Institute of Trinidad and Tobago. Under this umbrella, the UTT has rebranded this campus as the Energy Campus, and NESE will develop the drilling school. As I stand here, it's kind of a little strange sometimes. You tend to try to imagine what life will be in the future. It's sometimes very difficult to do that. You can work out all the theories and the theorems. But I sat just like you, sitting there many years ago when we launched this facility here. And I recall, maybe, I don't know if it's still outside there was a tree where you had the names of the companies that would have funded the NESE at that time. And where we sit here was the former Bagas plant of Caroni 1975 Limited. And it has since been transformed. You would have heard about the history and the transformation and the transition from one to the next. And today we are here to launch the Energy Institute. I wish to congratulate both chairmen, boards of governors, and I want to also say all members of faculty, staff, and indeed I want to also recognize in that regard the contribution of students, because as you teach, new ideas come to you as the teacher that may be imparted to other persons that may lead to policy development. I ask you to put your hands together for both institutions and the Board of Governors. For the first time, persons will have the opportunity to train as well as to explore further academic pursuits in energy-related undergraduate and postgraduate programs under one institute. We have seen in Trinidad and Tobago the importance of institutes that become world famous. We can make reference here today about the EITT, the Imperial College of Tropical Agriculture. There are many institutes on the St. Augustine campus. If you go to Harvard Business School and you walk to your business class, you'll see a number of institutes as you pass by. But is it simply just a name that we are going into? Or is it a paradigm shift in terms of how we do things? It has to be, or else what will only happen? We'll just change the facade, but inside the body has not changed. This Energy Institute must embody that change both externally and internally, but for the benefit of Trinidad and Tobago. This institute, like EITT and like the Central Agricultural Research Station at Waterloo, that it used to be world famous, must become a world famous institute for energy and energy studies. Why can't it not? When we have over 100 years of experience, when, as the acting permanent secretary in the Ministry of Energy has told you this morning, as we speak, and I got the text just now too, and I'm requested to meet with the Tanzanians, 18+ member delegation that are here to talk to us about energy and energy affairs. And they want to speak to me about training for the energy sector. We welcome all of them. Anywhere you go in the world where there's an oil field or oil rig, you might be certain to have a Trinidadian there. We provide that excellent training because of the history of training, going back to the days of apprenticeships. Going back to the days of 1906 when apprenticeship started in Trinidad and Tobago, very close to the time when you started the first oil well. And therefore, I want to say that we look forward, and all of us who are sitting here today must in the years to come be proud of this, the launch of this institute that you are present to, that will become a world-famous institute, the Energy Institute of Trinidad and Tobago. It will be supported by the other institutions in the tertiary sector, be it the University of the West Indies or any other institution. But the Energy Institute will be branded as one of the primary organizations and the first stops for research and also for study. Essentially, this Energy Institute will be, as I indicated, this one-stop shop, allowing students to articulate from one level to the next level. And therefore, it's in this context that we also congratulate both institutions, but also in terms of the Accreditation Council of Trinidad and Tobago for accrediting these programs. These programs will also be GATE funded, as you know. And contrary to what people are saying or people are thinking, or maybe they are dreaming, GATE is secured and will be expanded. Let me repeat that. There's no closure of GATE. What we will do with the GATE is to ensure that we want to see who are going through the GATE. It's not a free-for-all as you open the gate and everybody rush in. But the GATE must respond to the economic development strategy of the country and not further saturate a market for employment and create graduates who are unemployed. That's what we're going to be doing. We spend $650 million this year to finance GATE. And in some cases, what we are doing is financing the economies of other countries. I have no problem in being very charitable, but charity also begins at home. And therefore, if we can take that same money and build capacity right here, we keep our students here, and they contribute to the development of Trinidad and Tobago through you, the taxpayer dollar. I launched this morning as well. I just thought about it while I was sitting on the stage in Faizabad. I launched, and it was well received, what I'm going to call Student Career Advisor. A student career advisor is a simple context, and that is, very often you ask people to come, or you participate as well in going outside to give career guidance, seminars and sessions. And sometimes the people in your own institution don't know what is available. And I'm saying to them, why not start student career advisory committees, such that some of your students, just like you have your Guild of Graduates or Guild of Undergraduates or alumni, what are we going to do with this student advisor? And that is, you may find students and peer groups may come to you and may seek your advice. Could you imagine what that could do in a secondary school, for example, when we were in college? When you were in college and you wrote an exam at Form 4, it was called rejection test. You didn't determine. It was determined for you, based on your results, which stream you're going to, whether you're going to sciences, mathematics, modern studies, or languages. And you follow that career path. If you want to change after, that's all right. And I remember very clearly, I don't know how many of my colleagues will remember, there was a young man in college at our days called Roy Chunkit. Roy Chunkit, I think he would have gotten the silver medal at about 14 or thereafter, and the gold medal at 16. Roy Chunkit did science and mathematics. And of course, sometimes as little boys, we will ask him a question with our physics book. And I remember at one time, David Dandrad was my physics teacher. And David Dandrad, I think, subsequently worked at TNTech, PowerGen, and I believe Farmland, Mischem, PNCL. And by the time you you waited for Chunkit when he came down the sixth form step, and by the time he reached by the master's office, he would tell you, look at the back and see if there's the answer. But that wasn't anything I wanted to tell you about. We have Mr. Lakshman here too, who was an Island Scholarship winner. I'm seeing him here. He might have been in the days of Roy Chunkit. Roy Chunkit did science and maths and went and answered all the geography questions in college quiz. So I'll tell you that to tell you that learning is really, and now we live in this global village. For the first time we have launched teaching by the distance mode or the blended approach, where a professor can sit in the Faculty of Medical Sciences at Mount Hope and teach clinicals to students in San Fernando General Hospital. That will be expanded to Sangre Grande Hospital, it will be expanded to the Port of Spain General Hospital, and it will be expanded to the Scarborough Hospital in Tobago. You can't expect to extend and expand capacity in the tertiary sector by just bricks and mortar. I am into, somebody asked me the other day, what are you into? What is your mission? You know, people like to ask you that. What is your mission? They want to analyze you. I said, well, it's a very simple mission, you know. I'm into BTB. They said TB? No, they said they didn't hear it properly. I said BTB, building the brains. That is what survives us. We are going to be celebrating 167 years of Indian arrival next week, Wednesday. And in the context, and I want to invite all of you to visit the Diwali Nagar site. Last night we launched India, a culture of science. It's something that you should take your children to as well. And when you look at countries around the world that have progressed, like we too, education is the passport and continues to be from poverty to prosperity. We are looking at countries in the world, and we're looking at Singapore, as I look at it very regularly, second to Switzerland in the GCIs. And we ask ourselves, why can't we in Trinidad and Tobago? Well, we have done very well, I can tell you, as a nation, and I'm proud to be Trinidadian and Tobagonian. As a matter of fact, I want to tell you something. I have experienced that the time we talk best about Trinidad, sometimes when we're out of Trinidad. And don't make sky. Like if you meet somebody and going on a cruise in Alaska and they hear you talking about Trinidad, that's your best friend. You know why? It's identity. It's success. We are proud of what we have accomplished. And I want to say, today, as we launch this Energy Institute, I want to recognize and underscore the energies of all those who would have worked to bring us to celebrate this 50th anniversary of independence. From our very early days in 1962 and before that, and I ask you to recognize all of those who would have gone before to bring us to this point. You may give them a round of applause. Sometimes we don't even know what jobs are available. Sometimes you study programs and you do your BA and your BSc and your MBAs and so on, and it's just a routine, just a track. Sometimes people ask you, you finished CSEC? Yes. Okay. You go out for a job, like when some of us go to other schools, you have 8 and 9 and 10 CSEC passes, or CXC. I went to a graduation in a place called Queen's College in Georgetown, Guyana, and students there were passing 13 and 14 CXC subjects. But when you go outside and they ask, the employer says, you have 13 or 10 or 5 or whatever, you say, what can you do? I say, well, I have 10 CXC subjects. No, what can you do? I have 10. I remember when I came right here to Caroni Limited, right where the golf course is, there's a big building there used to be called, in fact, it was the general manager's house that was converted to the personnel department. Frank Blackburn used to work there and to live there too. And I went for an interview there after I come out with a degree in economics. They call you an economist. So you go as an economist for a job. And the personnel manager, now we have nice names for people. You know what happens? We sell a lot of books by changing the names. You know. Fellas sit in Starbucks in Seattle and coin a phrase. Proactivity, and everybody buy the book. And when everybody finish that, they come and they write the next book, reactivity, and they buy that too. And when I went up to the interview, he said, why do you want to work in Caroni? I said, well, I thought I had a good line. I said, well, my father works here, and I want to contribute to his succession planning. You know how long them was? And he asked me questions and so on, and I answered them. And then he said, you have a very good interview. I can give you this job, but you lack one thing. I said, what is that, sir? I thought I was a good-looking fellow. I had more hair than that time. In fact, I had long hair. And he says, you don't have experience. And I tell myself, as an economist, you want experience for this work? So he said, you know, at the end of the interview, they always ask you, would you like to ask me any questions? I said, yes, sir. I said, could you tell me how I can get experience without a job? He said, that's a good question, but I can't answer it no. I tell you that to tell you that the Energy Institute of Trinidad and Tobago will also be the place of refuge for those who don't have experience. This must be a place where you can be placed on the job. As a matter of fact, many of the, what you call the technocrats in Trinidad and Tobago, never went beyond Standard 6 and never saw the door of a university. The people who, when you would pass down the Southern Main Road many years ago, in the 60s, you would see one tank before you meet Texaco. And between that tank, you'll see TCL on the side. And that tank had a big green sign, W.R. Grace and Company. And people who worked there, and who worked here in Caroni, and who worked in Texaco, were those who labored in the vineyards and built that big industrial estate called the Point Lisas Industrial Estate. Such is the talent of Trinidad and Tobago. We are proud when people come to this country, we take them to see our industrial estate. And I want to tell you, I think what makes me even more proud is that the plants on that industrial estate, they are run by Trinidadians and Tobagonians. Foremost technocrats of the energy sector. I think we need to give them a round of applause. We are proud of all of you. We can teach the world. I'm sure Mr. Welch will agree with me. Many will come here to learn. Most will come here to earn. And some will leave to do the same abroad. They are now recognizing the contributions of people like UTT and NESC and UWI, where most of us would have come from. I think what is going to happen is that we have to, as we launch this Energy Institute today, we must remember that we did not say Petroleum Institute. We said the Energy Institute. And while petroleum is important, there will be petroleum, oil, gas, other forms of energy, renewable and non-renewable. The petroleum sector, as you know, contributes 40% of the GDP, 90% of FDIs, 70% of foreign exchange earnings, and 80% of all exports. These are significant regardless of how you analyze it, but it does not commensurately produce any data like that in terms of employment. Why? Very simple. They're capital-intensive industries. And one of the things I want the Energy Institute to do as well is to recognize that there's a difference between education and schooling and certificate and education. Those who are not certificated or credentialed or certified are not uneducated. They may not have been schooled like you, but they're not uneducated. And therefore, how do we recognize their contributions? There are many people in this factory here, right here at Britain Castle. It's sad to see how that looks now. I remember the days when you will see the chimney, when the people in California might be complaining about the soot. But there are many people who worked here were called factory engineers. Well, my father believed in them. He worked as an electrician in Caroni. And he said, the factory engineers we had here who came through the ranks were the engineers of the factory. He says, but some of the fellas, and he's telling me, some of the fellas who go to UE, you are engine far. You're far from the engine. Anyway, it's just an experience of learning. I want to tell you that there's a buzz around the town of Trinidad and Tobago. We are witnessing the expansion of the Panama Canal. We're looking at what is happening in Brazil, where they now went to the pre-sal. Brazil is preparing, and they're drilling outside there in depths of water, and they're preparing now, by 2015, to refine 5 million barrels of oil a day. Petrobras is foremost in that. Petrobras University has recognized that there's a skill shortage, and I've asked UTT and Mr. Khan, NESC, to visit Petrobras. And very importantly, to sign collaborative agreements with Petrobras. When I was here sitting like you, I told you that this facility was being tagged with the University of Houston, with TTIT. This is hallowed grounds for the evolution. It seems as though every time we have the evolution of an institution, it happens right on this property. From the Bagas plant, to NESC, to TTIT, to UTT, and now to EITT. We must be doing something right here. So today really is for us to look at what the potential has for us in this area. Mr. Navin Chandapal, who is the advisor to His Excellency the President of Guyana, is here not only to witness India the culture of science, but here to also talk about establishing energy training facilities in Guyana as they prepare for the increase in exploration. Guyana built a bridge called the Takatu Bridge. The rest is history. The Takatu Bridge joins Brazil with Guyana. And there are thousands of Brazilians now in Georgetown. You go next door, Suriname, oil exploration. And you go next door to that, Cayenne, French Guyana, into that as well. And you look at what is happening in Tobago and offshore. And you look at what is happening in Grenada. It's all around us. The Energy Institute is not only well positioned geographically, it is well placed to take advantage of the economies that will come to Trinidad and Tobago. Having kept you waiting, I think I shouldn't talk long. I think I have said enough. But I want to say that today is indeed, for me, a very important one in our history. I want to ask that this institute, we work out the details of the collaboration. We spoke to the Energy Chamber recently. You'll hear Mr. Manchun talk about that. And while it is a nexus between UTT and the NESC, we invite you, the stakeholders, to be part of it. You, the CEOs on the estate and elsewhere, must be important contributors like PetroSkills in advising what is going to happen. All must get on board. Like I said last week, when I launched what I call closing the digital gap. Because I was saying many people in the estate have knowledge but no certification. Hence, why we launched the workforce assessment centers. And in talking about the digital gap, we can't expect to be a technologically savvy country and talk about international competitiveness if you can't interface with the technology and master it. And I decided I'll take the mobile computer bus with 20 computers and start. It's going to go from village to village, and we're going to call that closing the digital gap. In other countries, they call it the digital divide. I would love to park that bus up at your places, your organizations, on the estate. There must be no intimidation when knowledge is concerned. You know why? The young ones with iPads and iPhones and everything else, you look at them, you can't even get close to them. You have to hope that they're not on sites that you don't know about or don't go. So I wish to say that this is, in my view, a step in the right direction. That this Energy Institute must have international relationship and branding and repositioning in the context of Trinidad and Tobago. You cannot expect to be world-class if you don't sometimes co-brand with other people. Or as Singapore says, not collaborate or cooperate, but co-create. When I was at the National University of Singapore, NUS, in 1997, they were giving us a flyer advertising for the first time an MBA with NUS and Stanford University. I've asked the president and the chairman of UTT. I found a Professor Fogg in the Times Magazine. He's from Stanford. Read about Stanford. Read about the success stories in ICT and the young gurus who are coming out of there, the multi-billionaires. Stanford and Professor Fogg has a class dedicated only to the development of mobile apps. Why can't we develop mobile apps for the energy sector? Why not? The question is not why. The question is why not? We have a saying down here. If the priest could play, who is me? Well, I'm saying not that. I'm saying if anybody else could do it in the world and succeed, we can do it and we can lead them. I congratulate you and thank you very much.